Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Cosmic Currents, a podcast about surfing, spirits, and the stories that connect us all. If we haven't met yet, hi, I'm Leah. I'm a women's empowerment mentor, which basically means that I help women build their inner confidence, trust, and connection. So today we are talking about confidence, especially or specifically when it comes to surfing. So confidence can be situational. And why should we do things that we're not very confident about or that we're not confident in ourselves in yet? So I think that what happens when we pursue things that we're not yet good at or not yet confident about, we experience a lot of personal growth and evolution. And in that sense, we can grow into either who we want to be or who we are meant to be. So that's going along with the idea that the universe has a plan for each of us and that if we just lean in, it'll take us. But that can be scary, right? There's no guarantee. Not a guarantee might not be the right word, but when you start doing that, you don't know what's coming. You don't know what that's going to lead to or if necessarily feel like or what that involves. And so you're taking that leap of faith. And so, yeah, we may not have confidence right at the beginning of what we're starting, and that's very normal. When we do things we're not already good at or not already confident in, it helps to resolve or heal a part of us. And this might be some part of us that doesn't believe it's possible or that we're not yet worthy. Like this also kind of doing things like this starts to reveal the wound, whatever the wound is for us, right? So that might come with time. We don't maybe get to know what that is right away. As we do this, we start to empower ourselves. So we start to do things or experience things that we didn't necessarily know we were able or capable of doing, right? We experience ourselves in a new way, which is very empowering. Um, we experience, we will experience discomfort in doing things that we're not good at or confident in. And moving through that is also empowering. And it can also make us a more understanding or compassionate person. And it also makes us a bit more well rounded. It gives us more life experience and it teaches us a lot of lessons. And I can just, if you can for a second think back maybe to something that you've done in the past that has given you this experience, or maybe you're having this experience right now with surfing. I think there are this is just such a tool of life, if that makes sense. Or a teacher of life, a teacher in life. So I started learning to surf a while ago. I started actively learning to surf about 8 years ago. I consider that the starting point because it's when I started taking lessons, but that wasn't the first time that I ever had surfed. I had tried years before, and I had also just kind of like floated around for a long time and had many failed attempts of, periods of time where I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then I would just go out. And I mean, I could maybe pop up in the whitewater, but it never really went further than that. And eventually I humbled myself and I just took lessons, and it felt ridiculous because I was like, oh, well, I kind of know what I'm doing and it's been 3 years. And no, so I was like, okay, I'm just going to do it. I took the lessons and started riding down the line. But honestly, my entire system just had a very hard time adjusting. So surfing just terrified me. And like on the mornings of my lessons, I couldn't eat anything because I was so nervous. And when I would get in the water, I would only go if it was small. And my instructor would spot waves and be like, okay, we're going for this one. And I would just refuse because I would say that I would claim that it was too big. And I just can imagine I was the most frustrating student because I know it wasn't too big. It was just my perception of anything over, like, I don't know, knee high was like, that felt big to me. And I just wanted to share that context because I really had to work for every ounce of confidence that I have. And just to remind you that surfing did not come naturally to me. And this whole process is going through this whole process is what's given me these insights and helped me build a bit of resilience. And I'm not the most confident surfer out there for sure. Like I can see that there are people who have, when I'm surfing, I can see people taking bigger waves or surfing with more confidence or more courage. But I can tell that I have a better technique, maybe, which is like, it's kind of hard to admit. I don't know why it's kind of something, a weird thing to just admit, but I can see that. And I know that that's on me. I should also mention before I get into this that I am not in any way a surf coach or qualified to teach surfing. This is all just from my experience. So this is my informal masterclass on Surf Confidence 101. So where I would start if I was experiencing, and even now, if I was experiencing a lack of confidence in surfing, I would ask, what am I afraid of? Or ask, what are you afraid of? So do you know what's holding you back? Do you know what you're afraid of? Starting there. And then asking yourself, could that fear actually come true? And start to rationalize it in your mind. So this is something I've been asked many times and also have been told, oh, it's just water. And it's like, that's not helpful. And so sometimes for me, it can come down to the conditions, the size of the wave will determine how confident I feel. Will I or won't I make it? And then I just have to keep asking why. Like, why do I still have fear paddling for this wave? Is it a fear of heights? Is it that I feel like the wave's going to crush me, or that I'm going to hit someone, or that I'll miss it and be stuck on the inside for the rest of the sets? Like, what is it that I'm actually afraid of? Does that then mean it's my I have a lack of confidence in my ability to duck dive, which is true for the bigger waves. I just don't enjoy that. At the beginning, I think it's a subconscious fear of drowning for a lot of us, or just being held under. And then, well, this will come in actually in a minute in the first couple of tips. But anyway, realizing what are we afraid of? And I want to just say now that this isn't necessarily to say you have to just push yourself and push yourself. It's also perfectly fine to not want to surf the biggest waves. This is just to make you feel, or make us feel, more confident and comfortable in the surf. I've come to realize that a lot of the time I don't want to push myself. Sometimes I just don't want the extra stress on my nervous system. So I will just stick to the waves that I know how to make, or that I feel most comfortable in, because those are the waves I have the most fun on generally. And then depending on how I'm feeling, sometimes I will push myself. Like if it's a day where there aren't many people out and the conditions are fun, and maybe it's a little bit bigger, or there's some bigger sets, sometimes I will wait for the bigger ones so that I can practice when I know there's not going to be a bunch of other people out the back trying to get those waves and I have to worry about that, or if there's not a bunch of people in front, so it just makes it easier. But if I'm not feeling up to that, or I'm feeling maybe more tired, or I just don't feel like practicing that, then I will just purposefully surf like the medium waves, and I'm perfectly happy doing that. And also those waves give me more confidence to practice turns and maneuvers without feeling like, oh, if I mess this up, like, I'm stuck in the middle of the break, or I've wasted a good wave or something. And even now people will often, which is nice, like encourage me to go on the bigger waves or offer me bigger waves. And and I'm more inclined to do that when I'm just on my own and I don't have to, also another thing is having the confidence to be like, no, no, thanks. Or just actually do things because you want to, not because somebody else is telling you that you should go for that bigger wave. So I think that confidence is so important, because in surfing, it comes down to, it's a big determinant of your experience. If you're out there and you're scared and you're not sure what's going to happen next or what to do, like it's not a fun experience. And so I think it's important now to talk about what confidence actually is. So to be confident, or to have confidence, means to basically have a sense of trust and be self-assured. And be self-assured that not necessarily that everything's going to be fine, like that everything, is going to turn out perfect, but that everything is going to be okay, no matter the outcome. So you feel this sense of trust in yourself. You have this, this sense of confidence, this sense of like, okay, I can do this. That is confidence, right? It's not necessarily knowing that everything is going to be perfectly fine, but it's like this feeling self-assured, feeling like you can back yourself up. And then there may come a sense of uncertainty. Even when you have confidence, there can be a level of uncertainty, and that is courage. That is when courage comes into the game. So I would consider courage to be that feeling of like being scared and doing it anyway. Confidence has a little bit more of a security, of a knowing aspect. It's not always being successful. It's also having the confidence to be able to handle setbacks, not letting them consume you, being able to see the bigger picture, right? So a confident person would surf a wave or try to surf a wave, and maybe they wouldn't make it or they would fall. And instead of just being like, oh, well, I suck, I'm getting out, they would have the confidence to go back and try again. So yeah, confidence is like with a sense of trust. The feeling or saying like, I'm telling you this in confidence is like, I'm telling you this with trust. It's just another interesting way to think about it. So these next few tips they mostly apply to beginners, I think, but listen anyway if you're not a beginner, because if you didn't do these as a beginner, it's something you probably want to start doing now. So the first kind of like category, I've broken these off into kind of like categories, is understanding surfing at a logistical level. So the first thing I would say is study, learn, and understand, how do waves work? So what are they energetically doing? What is the process of, let's say, turtle rolling or duck diving? What is the process? What is the reason you need your board to be at a certain angle so that you can drop in? How come you can't paddle on the shoulder and just stand up? Like, understanding the mechanics of surfing will really help you to feel comfortable and confident in what's happening, because in the moment it can be kind of hard to understand. And I think we've all seen people out there who, they're paddling back to the break slowly, and you can see a wave rolling in, and that they're going to get like tossed by that wave, but they don't have yet the understanding of how strong that wave is, or of just like how it kind of works, right? So you can see that you can understand also why, when you're learning, you have all of these more difficult wipeouts, because you don't yet understand the dynamics of the waves, if that makes sense. Like another one would be how, when you wipe out, if you can't swim to the top yet, or if you can feel that there's a lot of turbulence above you, it's better to just wait underneath and then pop up. But you don't know to do that unless you understand what's actually happening. The second thing I would say is start to build the correct muscle memory. So in addition to practicing pop-ups on land, being in the water and just practicing paddling. So practicing different strokes, like understanding paddle techniques, even practice just sitting on your board comfortably, controlling your board, figuring out how to sit down and turn it around. These things will help you feel more confident when there are some size in the water and when there are also other people around you. And with that, like, do you know how to manage yourself in the lineup or around other people? So do you know do you know the rules? Do you know when it's your turn? Do you know when it's not? Do you know when it would be appropriate to call yourself onto a wave? Like, what would happen if you miss it? It's kind of like learning how to drive without knowing the rules of the road. So surfing is not just about you. It's you being in each person in the lineup or in the water affects the whole dynamic, right? And so it's really important to understand the rules and the etiquette. This will also make you more confident, because if you're sitting there on the shoulder and people are just paddling around you and going in the inside and taking waves, and you feel like, oh, when is it my turn? When do I get to go? Should I just go on this one? It's like you have to understand how the lineup works and be able to pay attention also, and know when it is okay to call yourself onto a wave, when it's not, what's appropriate, what's not. just so that also you don't feel like, because otherwise how are you going to learn, right? Like nobody owes you waves, nobody owes you their surf knowledge. It's up to you to learn this, and it's up to you to apply it. So in this sense too, like standing up for yourself is a big one, using your voice, and that can feel really intimidating, but you just have to do it, and you have to learn the rules so that you feel confident when you do it. With that, do you have an escape route? So like that's when maybe like a bigger set's going to come in. If you can't duck dive with, in a crowd, and you can't throw your board because you're in a crowd, do you know how to get out of the way? Do you know how to get out of the water? This is super important, I think, well, also for safety of everyone, but it's important for yourself and for your confidence, because it can be really disheartening to be in someone's way or get hit or hit someone else or get screamed at in the water. And so avoiding all of that, I think, is really helpful, and it can be a real blow to your confidence if some, like, these things are going to happen, but especially when you're learning, it's like you don't need that experience, or it's like it's not helpful, I don't think. And if you tend to get scared, lose your breath, panic, like, do you know how to calm yourself down when you're out there? And figuring out for yourself what works will be really helpful so that you can regain your confidence. And so whether that means, paddling out onto the shoulder and just taking a breather. I still do this, especially when it's big. Like if I've had if I've had a bunch of waves and I just need like a minute, I will just sit outside of the lineup for a second. Or if it's big and I'm starting to feel nervous, I will just sit on the shoulder and just take a couple breaths and just remind myself that just having paddled out is enough. And I think back on all of the times that I, couldn't even have in the past probably paddled out on a day like that or something. And so I just try to reinforce that feeling in myself. So understanding, again, this comes back to like knowing what you're afraid of and kind of coming back um, to like, if you panic or if you do tend to lose your breath, can you calm yourself down without having to get out? So coming up with techniques for that. So the next part is building mental and emotional confidence. So this could be for anyone at any level, but I think that a lot of people, when we start surfing, experience this because we're doing something new. We are probably not very good at it. And this comes with a fear of being judged, looking stupid, or feeling incompetent, however you want to word it. And honestly, this is just something that we need to get over. Other surfers are not watching you and they are not judging you. Surfers are inherently just looking out for themselves and want to try and catch their own waves. So that was a big one for me, is that just reminding myself, like, people don't care about, people just want, like, no one goes out there to surf just to like look for other people to make fun of or judge. Like, not at all. It can be intimidating because yes, you recognize that you're learning and maybe you're not the best at it, whatever, but you have to also remember that it's okay to be bad at something. It's okay to be learning, right? Like, and I think sometimes we can take ourselves a little bit too seriously. And what I've tried to do lately is just take a step back and just say, so what? Like, this didn't work out. So what? I'm bad at surfing. So what? I'm learning. So what? It's like, it just gives you this like, and what's the problem, right? Like, there isn't one, and it's okay. And I think it's really helpful to remember that everyone has been through the learning curve at some point. Nobody was born good at surfing. So if anything, I think that people see people who are learning and they get this flashback. I mean, sometimes I see people who are learning and I just think, I'm so glad that I'm not there anymore. And then when I mean learning, I mean like very much just starting to surf. And I'm just, that learning curve is so hard. And so I think that a lot of the time there is a lot of compassion for those people, and it's not a judgment, but I think the most frustration from other surfers towards learners is when they don't understand the dynamics, the logistics, the mechanics of the wave, because that's when it becomes dangerous. The next thing I would say for how to improve your confidence from a mental and emotional standpoint is do not compare yourself. Do not start going down the rabbit hole of, I should be better at this by now. I've been doing this for however many months or weeks or years, and I'm only at this stage. Like, there's no point. And we actually never know what other people are going through. So it's really not a good idea to compare. So going both ways, like we don't want people to judge us, and also we shouldn't compare ourselves or judge others, because we don't know when, what people have gone through or when they started surfing, or, it doesn't really say much about a person. People could be recovering from injuries or traumas. Their goal in surfing might not be the same as yours, or it might not be what you assume it to be. So really just, if anything, you like maybe admiring somebody's style or something, or asking for tips in that sense. But a lot of these maneuvers and things that might look really easy, like the better a surfer is, the easier they make it look, really. But they've probably had years and years of experience. So I just recommend trying not to compare yourself. If anything, just admire, but it doesn't have to be part of your process, I guess. The next thing I would say is try to be really present and aware of yourself and your thoughts and your internal dialogue. So, how do you speak to yourself when you're surfing? Do you tell yourself that you're not going to make it? Do you talk yourself down? I think this is a major one for confidence. It's like having this negative influence stuck in your head, like that's not going to be helpful. So, always try to speak to yourself the way you would speak to a friend who's learning something new. Try not to just bring yourself down. And sometimes we try to self-sabotage because, it gives us a feeling of control, or like we can brace ourselves for when things are inevitably going to go wrong. But we shouldn't think like that. We shouldn't think that things are going to go wrong. We should actually talk ourselves up. Instead, we could say, like just saying, oh, this wave is going to be a fun one. Like, or focusing, even if you can't really come up with anything positive, you could also just focus on your breath, or you could just focus on your, where you're looking, or making sure your board is set up in the right way. We don't have to necessarily judge. And if anything, just say like, yeah, I can make this. Yes, I can make this, or any other affirmation. That kind of comes into the next thing I want to say, which is just like an overall one, but like just getting into some good surf habits. So instead of, this negative self-talk, try to think of phrases that you can easily come to, because if they're the same ones, they'll come more easily, right? So affirmations, coming up with the breathing that you need, coming up with maybe a pre-surf routine. So that could be just as simple as having the same stretches or warm up and a breathing exercise before you get in the water to help calm yourself down and just center yourself. Also helping to kind of clear any negative thoughts or anything that's already happened that day. It's really common, I think, that we bring in our everyday stress or our everyday like baggage kind of into the water. So taking a minute to get centered before you get in can be really helpful, or in my experience. Okay, the next category is wave stuff, I've called it, like surfing stuff. Well, we'll see. We'll get into it. So the first thing I would say is do not surf on the days that are way above your level. So this is a really good way to freak yourself out. I think you should definitely surf on the days that are challenging, but not dangerous for you. And there is a difference. So besides your own safety and competence in the water, think of who you'll be sharing the lineup with. And if you know that you cannot duck dive your board in that crowd, then it's not safe for you to wait in that same area. Now you can also, there are other ways to avoid having to do that and to be able to surf, but that's just an example. So you can learn the break, you can learn how to get out of the way, you can learn how to like wait on the shoulder and paddle in between sets, things like that. There are ways to maneuver or manage the conditions always, but if you're not there yet, you can just skip that session. Like, it's okay. You don't have to go out on the biggest days. This is also because I think, big scares, injuries, getting in the way of other people, getting yelled at, they're all quick ways to lower your confidence. So going out on days that are just a little bit above your level, but not way outside your comfort zone, I think are going to be helpful, especially in the beginning. Especially, I guess this is a good one for when you're starting, but use the same board for a while and surf at the same beach if you can for a while. So recently, actually, I surfed a break that I'd never surfed before, and it was like medium, big-ish, but not like massively scary. But it was a point break, which would be helpful, but it was very windy, and the direction I think was a little bit crossed because waves were coming in different directions, and I found myself kind of nervous, like how I used to feel. Not nervous when not the same kind of nervous when like a wave's kind of big, but nervous as yeah, that I don't know, it was just like a kind of a feeling from the past. And I realized it was because I couldn't predict how the wave was going to come in, and I didn't know exactly where it was going to break, and I had just gotten in, so I didn't know exactly how strong it was, and I just didn't have I couldn't predict the break with the same accuracy that I'm used to because I'm very used to surfing the same few breaks. So knowing the break well will help with confidence because it'll be one less thing you have to really think about. You'll be able to really read the wave well and automatically so that you'll get the timing right, and you'll be able to just by looking at it know how strong it is, what that wave's going to feel like when it hits you, whether you're surfing the wave or you're duck diving or getting out of the wave. You can the timing for everything becomes much easier. And then as you start surfing faster, steeper waves, you're going to have to stand up quicker, and you're going to have less time to think about everything you need to do, which is when you're going to really start to rely on trust and muscle memory to get you through. And so if you have a tendency to panic or overthink or doubt or hesitate, that's when things are really going to go wrong. And so to build your confidence in that, definitely work on quieting the mind and staying calm. I feel like that is really important in surfing and can be practiced both in and out of the water. And it's something that if you get into the habit of doing it right from the beginning, I think it will make surfing more difficult conditions a little bit easier. And because it will again become habit, right? Like everything that you do in surfing from the beginning will become habit. So that's why it is really important to build the right habits from the start. And that will also improve your sense of trust and confidence in your body. Another thing would be to stay physically active when you're not surfing so that you do have that sense of trust in your body. But, other tips, I guess, would be manage your expectations. So if you take time off, you likely won't pick up at the same place you left off. And that's very, very normal. Whether it's a couple of weeks or a month or more, it's going to feel different. And that's just something that we just have to expect that. And it's okay. And it'll come back. Some other tips I have would just be to make sure you validate yourself throughout this entire process and then get the appropriate validation and feedback from others, but be selective with that feedback and those tips. And definitely, you don't have to take every single criticism to heart. Again, like other people don't necessarily, random people don't necessarily know what it is you're working on or what it is you've been through or the courage it took you maybe just to paddle out that day. So you don't have to take everybody's tips and feedback and criticism to heart. And so having a really knowing, I guess, how do I even say this? Like the weight that you give somebody else's feedback or validation is important, right? Your own validation, your own feelings, they come first and everything else comes second. And probably should have a little bit less weight. And then be selective. Like when you work with a coach, yes, go all in, take their feedback if you trust them, but also understand your goals and why you're there. And if, like I think I mentioned this in the last episode with Emmy, like if just paddling out that day is enough for you, then congratulate yourself on that and validate yourself on that. And that can be enough for one day. You don't always have to be taking tips from every single person because a lot of times, we as women will get the unsolicited surf advice and tips and you don't have to take it. That being said, you can find mentors and others who are doing what you're doing. And you can also look for examples of people who have done what you're doing and that feel like represent you. And that, I think, helps just remind yourself that, what you're doing is hard, but it's not impossible and other people do it. Doesn't mean compare yourself to them or their process, but I do think it is inspiring and can be really nice. Just remember, I think, setting your own goals, going at your own pace. It is never a competition. It's actually just your experience. And that, I think, one of the most important things in surfing is to enjoy it and to have fun. And so that's why I really emphasize and I'm really passionate about talking about confidence, because it does determine your experience in the water. I think confidence is like the foundation of surfing in a way, and then come the technique and everything else. And that obviously plays a big role as you get better. But the foundation of confidence, understanding what's happening, the mechanics of surfing, the internal process, that's huge. And so this is all built over time. So really try to enjoy the process. Like I has said in episode, 3 or something, the process is the point, right? Like this is where the lessons come. This is also, this is what will determine the rest of the rest of your accomplishments in surfing. It feels kind of weird to say that, but the rest of what happens is built on this foundation. So it's built over time, and try to enjoy the process, have fun with it, go at your own pace, set your own goals. It is never it's never a competition, right? Like it's just for you. So I hope that that's helpful. I hope that that can help you to build your confidence. Know that you do have the right to be there. You have the right to be learning. You have the right to enjoy the process. And yeah, so with that being said, we do have a couple of spots left in our upcoming retreat here in Loitos, happening from November 17th to 24th. And we talk a lot about confidence. So if you'd like more information, you can send me a message or just check out my website. All right, I will leave you there. I hope this has been helpful, and yeah, I will talk to you soon. And until next time, buenas olas.